not going to get them back. Trust me, I teach college. My college students have a certain attention span, you know. If my class is 50 minutes and I go 52 minutes, you see them just zoning out. So just keep that in mind. And I will tell you that being someone who was actually diagnosed as being ADHD, but not diagnosed until I was an adult, I can tell you as a kid how frustrating it was not knowing what was wrong with me. So keep that in mind. A child's attention span, even a child that doesn't have ADHD, often a child because of their age will have a short attention span. So just keep that in mind. How many of you are going to be working with teens this summer? Somewhat preteens? Okay. I figured the adventure camp you're working with. How old?
Mostly 9 to 11, and
Okay,
then
so
maybe 12 to 14.
So that's where you're getting to this point, so just keep that in mind. So some of the things about working with teens, you got to get their input, you got to give them some choice. So I know that's tough when you're in a structured camp, but you want to kind of create opportunities for them to make some choices. The best camp I ever ran in my life, which was a preteen camp, you kind of can't do here because you don't have the structure, but it was a YMCA. And we were a camp on a bus. And we would get together at a certain park every day, and we'd meet, and we'd go to a different activity, to a different park or a different facility. Friday was choice day. So what happened was, on Wednesdays, the campers would be given two choices of what to do on Friday. They were always activities that we could plan within 2 days. So they would vote on which activity they wanted. It could be swimming, it could be bowling, it could be whatever. That was the most successful preteen camp I ever ran. The kids had a choice in it. They bought into it. Now, you can't necessarily do that. Sarah or a guy can't arrange suddenly if you have a bus. But when you're doing certain activities together, when you're planning counselor-planned activities, think about that. Think about when can you give them a vote on an activity they're going to do and give them that choice. I always describe it as being that when you're working with teenagers, getting them to buy into it is everything. And the way you get them to buy into it is give them a choice. Make your ideas their own. So maybe they can't come up with something creative, but think about something that you know they want to do. Get them excited about it. Again, there too, if it's an activity you've planned, get some input from them on how you can kind of tweak the activity. So again, they feel that idea is theirs. Think creatively and outside the box. The best teen programming professional I ever worked for was my director when I worked in the YMCA. I will never forget us going to a middle school. We wanted to start a new program and went to the middle school, and we got a focus group together of middle school students to see what they wanted to see in a program. And a bunch of them started talking about that they wanted to go rock climbing. This was in Coral Springs, Florida. Where are my Florida people? What is the topography of Florida?
Very flat.
Very flat. This was not the day of every recreation center having a rock wall. But we left that meeting, and I looked at my boss, Susan, and I said, well, that was a waste. She goes, I said, well, they want to go rock climbing. We're in Florida. Well, Susan knew that in Orlando, land of make-believe and amusement parks and theme parks, there was a place that had just built a rock wall. Okay? Again, much more common nowadays than it wasn't. She said, why can't we plan a trip there? So in other words, what she did was she took their ideas and said, okay, how can we think outside the box? So some of the ideas your teens may come up with may be totally off the wall. How can you implement some of that? How can you, within the parameters of what you have, within the framework of what you have, how could you implement some of that? And I will tell you, this is not just true for preteens. This is true for younger kids, too, if you can. Bullying. Bullying is a topic that, folks, we can sit here and talk for 3 hours, especially with kids. But one of the statistics I found that was most disheartening is that every 7 minutes, a child is bullied, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Every 7 minutes. So another statistic recently that doesn't apply necessarily to camps, but I'm sure there's an analogy, and that is that 160,000 kids a year try to avoid going to school because they're being bullied. 160,000 kids. So if you have a situation where a child is being bullied, I would encourage you immediately to go talk to Sarah or Guy or Dan. But I have a question for you, and that is, and I want you to write it down. What can you do to create an environment in your group where bullying is less likely to happen? What can you do to create an environment in your group where bullying is less likely to happen? I'll give you about 2 minutes to think of something. I'm a man of my word, especially when it comes to that. Okay, so give me some ideas. What could you do to create an environment where bullying becomes unacceptable or less likely? You look like you want to say something. Don't need to put you on the spot.
That's okay. So I said like supervising as much as possible, so watching and listening into your children's conversations. If you hear something that sounds like cruel or negative, to intervene. And then also like when you go over the rules in the beginning of camp, kind of hit on that and just say like we don't stand for like negative or like mean language here, and yeah, just kind of make that known in the beginning.
Good. How else?
You could also do it by like enforcing good sportsmanship. So if you're having the kids play games with each other, like, stress that there's no like winners or losers. Like, everyone's equal to it.
It's funny you say that. The best camp director I ever worked with, she was amazing, ran my sports camp. And she had this whole attitude of, it was in the program where the children had rules of respect. And it came into sportsmanship and it carried through in how they acted every day. It was amazing. It was creating this environment of respect through sports. What else?
We kind of talked about this yesterday as a group, but we said that providing positive reinforcement for good behaviors, so we're focusing on like the good things they're doing and the nice things they're doing for one another rather than like punishing the bad things that they're
Real
doing.
important. When you see a child does something really nice and respectful to another child, you acknowledge it, catch them doing something good. You know, it's really effective, even more effective than catching them doing something bad, and that sends a message. The kids see that they're being rewarded for being respectful and treating each other well.
And think about the choice of activities, things you choose. What roles are the kids playing in those activities? What's the title of the game? Is it, shooters or stuff like that? Might send the wrong message.
Yep. I had a policy in my recreation department. Staff hated it. I wouldn't allow them to play dodgeball. I think the day I left the town of Randall, they celebrated by all playing dodgeball. And the reason I let them play dodgeball is I said, the purpose of this game is to hit somebody with a ball. And I eliminated it. It was funny because I had one one director who was Israeli, and she ran a program for me, and I come in and I see the students playing dodgeball, and her name was Leah, and I said, Leah, what are they doing? She goes, oh, it's an Israeli game called Bachimush. Dodgeball. Think about that, the activities you're planning. Do they go into enforcing, do they go into encouraging bullying, or do they go into encouraging that idea of mutual respect and sportsmanship? Anything else?
Make sure everyone feels included and accepted within the group.
Oh, God. Please imprint that on your foreheads for the summer. Say it again.
Make sure everyone feels included and accepted in the group.
Really important. And we're going to talk a little more about that in a minute, too. This is the perspective of a camp parent, what a counselor means. Colleen Jatan is the administrative assistant for the Hart School of Hospitality, Sport, and Recreation Management. Her daughter, Brinley, was a camper here last year. I think she's back again this summer. This was her quote about camp counselors. Camp counselors make all the difference in the world. They become lifelong friends with the kids as well as with the parents. My daughter's camp counselor has become an inspiration to her to try and work harder for something you want. That's the perspective of a parent of the impact you have. Now let's look at the perspective of a camper. Brenley, they're always there for you. I connected with my camp counselor because he made things fun and he was unique. Think about this. We had our own special handshake. He will forever be my friend. Kind of makes me choke up a little, but that's what it's all about. It's that, we're going to learn more about this in a minute, but it's about the camp cheer that you teach them, that special handshake that you have for that child. Again, this is the impact of a child. Now that I have Brinley's face up there, I don't know if you guys talk about social media, but just be aware, never post your campers' faces on social media. Ever, ever, ever. We actually had an incident in UREC a few years back before your time where I had to call the director, who was a former student of mine, to say, unless you have a release, you don't put that on social media. It's too dangerous. I will tell you that in some states now they're actually making it illegal for you to post a child's picture unless you have that release. But there's certainly a liability issue if a parent protests, but it's more of a danger issue. Europe sometimes tends to be a little ahead of us on certain things, and when I was in Ireland with a group of study abroad students a few years back, my background is recreation. I saw a really cool playground. I wanted to take a picture of it, and our tour guide said, you will be arrested. I said, to take a picture of the playground? Yeah, if you don't have a photographer's license in Ireland, you can't take pictures any place where there are children. Keep that in mind. Do not post your campers' pictures on social media. Colleen gave me permission to put Brinley's face up there, and a cute face it is. This comes from the American Camping Association, and I apologize, guys. I explained to Sarah. First of all, I apologize for calling you guys. So when I first started teaching here at JMU, in a grad class, I had a female student come up to me, and she goes, you know, that's kind of gender discriminatory. And I said, why? She goes, you keep saying you guys. And I had to explain that if you're from New York, you guys is you all. So I apologize ahead of time. The other thing I apologized for was I had an eye doctor's appointment this morning, and he dilated my pupils. So I kind of feel like I'm stoned. I can't see. So I will have some trouble reading this, but I want to make sure you hear this. So this is what the American Camping Association says about the impact camps have on children. It allows them to create new relationships, not just with other students, but with adults as well. These relationships teach children social skills and how to cope with different situations. It gives them a powerful identity that makes children feel confident in front of others, and it provides them with something genuine to like about themselves. And I love this. A child may not be best on the ropes course, the fastest swimmer, or the next teen idol when they sing, but chances are, listen carefully, chances are a good camp counselor is going to help a child find something to be proud of that they can do well. A good camp counselor is going to help a child find something that they can be proud of that they do well. Feel control of their lives. Remember, for many kids, this is the first time outside of structured school when they're away from their parents. And the fact that they have some decision-making in the process, for example, if you give them decision-making in activities, makes them feel that they're in control. makes them feel treated like a family, and this is going back to the idea, makes them treated fairly, sorry. And this goes back to the idea that when they come to camp, they could come in and have a reputation in school of being a geek. They could be a child that suffers from dyslexia. But when they come to camp, everything starts anew. This becomes a safe place for every child. And it goes back to the idea of running your group with the philosophy of the environment of mutual respect for each other and making sure you find those strengths in each child. Find out, again, when you help them find out what they're good at and strong at, it makes them feel better. We talked about the fact that it helps them develop physically camp. I love this. It helps them, it makes them feel like they belong. That is as simple as the little cheer or camp song you make up for your group. It makes them feel they belong. It makes them feel like a part of a group. So any activities you can do, be it the camp song, be it that special handshake that your group has, anything that makes them belong makes them feel better about themselves. I love this. I think this should be the mantra of everybody that works with children. How many of you are familiar with the poet, the late poet Maya Angelou? I love this. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Please remember this as you go into your summer. People will forget what you said. People forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Really important. Sarah, I'm going to ask you a favor and some help up here because there's a quick video I want to show. So I just need to get the link opened up. I'm going to show you this brief video. I show it in my class, usually to my seniors when they graduate and go out in the world. And it's about the impact we have on others. I do warn you that it is heartwarming and very sentimental and can bring tears to your eyes. So if I didn't make you cry before, I might make you cry now. So I apologize.
You're like my father.